The beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2 takes place in a seemingly pleasant town full of character. But as Roxas lives day to day, odd and unexplainable things happen. This is, of course, because Roxas is a real boy stuck inside a simulation. His bedroom is fake, his friends are fake, his goals and accomplishments are all fake. All constructed by an outside engineer, Diz, to keep Roxas in line until he has fulfilled his purpose.
This world of data is referred to by the fanbase as Virtual Twilight Town, Twilight Town Simulation, or Data Twilight Town. During our season on Chain of Memories, the word data referred to recorded information. But from Kingdom Hearts 2 onward, when we use the term data, we're referring specifically to the type associated with technology, digital material.
Twilight Town differs from the other data world in Kingdom Hearts 2, Space Paranoids, the computer world with Tron. You can compare virtual Twilight Town to, say, the world you walk around in exploring a video game. Space Paranoids, on the other hand, is a visual representation of sifting through a computer's code or files. The way Roxas and later Sora had a device transport them into the virtual Twilight Town makes it seem like it's located within Diz's computer. But on the other hand, nearing the climax of the game, Chip and Dale point out seeing two Twilight Towns. Whether they mean see optically or see on a scanner, either way, this should be impossible if the virtual Twilight Town was completely encased within the computer. Somehow, this virtual simulation seemed to have reached the outside world. This isn't ever explicitly said in Kingdom Hearts 2 itself, but it is corroborated by a few things.
First, Sora and company were able to leave the virtual Twilight Town via a corridor portal that leads to the world that never was. They never used the computer to undigitize them. And Axel could enter the virtual Twilight Town without being digitized at all. Contrary to natural assumption, maybe Roxas and Sora were never digitized with that device, only transported. Second, various items from this virtual Twilight Town made their way to the real world thanks to Riku. The photograph of Roxas with his friends, Olette's money bag she made herself, and the blue crystal marble from the one-of-a-kind struggle trophy.
There's gotta be another town out there like this one. That would explain how the king got that pouch in the crystal.
While various characters were able to touch and hold these digital items, they may not be completely stable or safe, based on the caution Diz had.
Objects from that town must be kept out of the real world.
But digital items having actual mass, and characters from the real world entering the data without being converted into data, implies that perhaps, some way, somehow, the virtual Twilight Town actually takes up real space. While this idea makes the simulated world sound sophisticated and convincing, it's not without its fair share of glitches and oddities.
Diz had to take fast actions to keep Roxas within the bounds of the world he created. For instance, Diz made Riku take Roxas's money, his only means of visiting the virtual beach with his friends.
Is it really that hard to make a beach?
We'd be giving the enemy another entry point.
And Diz later prevents Roxas from boarding a train since its destination, Yenzid's tower, was never included in the simulation's coding. We can assume that Digital Hainer was executing a command when he pulled Roxas back with the excuse of,
"You'll get hurt."
There are also quite a number of glitches and other activity due to outside interference, like Axel, who seemed to pause the Struggle Tournament's audience. But Dusks especially caused a great number of glitches and strange instances in their attempts to contact Roxas. There's the iconic situation of them stealing not only photos of Roxas, but the word photo from the data's vocabulary pool. Dusks are also the cause for over half of the rumors featured in the 7 Wonders of Twilight Town. But Axel and the Dusks under his command are not the only nobodies responsible for tweaking the system.
Naminé has her own reasons for manipulating this data world. While Naminé's main goal is waking Sora up, Like Riku, she also has sympathy for Roxas, seeing herself in him. Because of this, she tries multiple times to meet with him and explain why things are the way they are. On the third day, Naminé pauses Pence and Olette so she can meet Roxas uninterrupted. Later that day, after Roxas fights the giant nobody in the Station of Awakening, Naminé pulls him into a strange room we only ever see once. A place that could be interpreted as a room Naminé herself coded into existence, since it's not copied from any real place we've seen. Rather, seems inspired by Naminé's past in Castle Oblivion. It's a minimalist void, but has large blocks resembling the crown-shaped cards. This is the first time she tries to explain everything to Roxas, but is stopped by Riku.
Was that Naminé made of data?
No. Naminé hijacked the data herself. Look what she's done now. She's totally beyond my control.
The next time she speaks to Roxas is inside the mansion's white room with her drawings. This time, she does use an avatar of herself made of data. However, partway through Naminé and Roxas's conversation, her avatar dissolves into pixels. Her real self appears against Diz's wishes, where she tries to relieve Roxas with hope that they'll meet again. It turns out this visit to the mansion was planned to be Roxas's last. Too many nobodies had wiggled their way into the data world, and Diz was out of time. So he lured Roxas to the mansion, and in a twist of the knife, Diz used his own data avatar to taunt Roxas before he slept so Sora would awaken. Even though most of Sora's visits to Twilight Town are in the real world, his experiences still give us insight into how the virtual version works.
At the end of Sora's first experience with Twilight Town, before he gets on the train to the mysterious tower, Hayner and Sora have this exchange.
Hey, Sora? You sure we haven't met before?
Positive. Why do you ask?
I don't know.
This is when Sora cries a tear, our first sign that Roxas still exists within Sora. But Roxas is not the only one in the scene who shows how powerful the connections between people are. For this could also imply the real Hayner is sensing Roxas, someone only his digital counterpart was friends with. This scene might be hinting that Hayner and the others are connected to their virtual versions. And this may be part of what Ansem the Wise was telling Mickey when thinking back to his creation of the virtual Twilight Town.
The inhabitants of my Twilight Town were data created from real hearts. I was convinced that they would think and behave the way I had envisioned, but I couldn't have been more wrong. A heart is so much more than any system.
We're talking about one of my favorite topics in the whole fucking world, which is
Twilight Town 2.
The fucking Matrix. Wonderful. Roxas took I don't know if Roxas took any pill. I don't know if anybody gave him that option, but he would have taken the red pill.
Yeah, he would have. Because then he could figure out what the fuck's going on to him. So I want to start out with my kind of stupid, kind of not stupid question.
Okay.
So my question is, what is all this for? Like, why don't they just tie up Roxas and put him under anesthesia and be like, you're gonna see Sora now when he's ready? Why did they have to put him in this?
Why were they being too much?
Yeah, why were they being too much? Why did they put them in this fucking, what's his name? Bill Cipher, Mabel, prison trap.
Oh my god, I forgot about about that. Well, I'd have to say it's for the same reason that they had to trap Mabel. And it's because, I feel like it's because Roxas is just too fucking powerful. Roxas is so strong. It's crazy to think about because he's literally like only a year old. He's a baby.
He's a baby.
But he's so powerful. His boss is fucking hard. And Riku got his ass whooped. Eventually, he summons 2 Keyblades, which I don't even know if Diz fucking knew he could do that.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah, so to me, I assume they probably had to, like, one, brainwash him using Naminé, and then make a world that would go along with his brainwashing. That's what I think, personally.
Okay.
Personally.
Okay. That makes sense. That was one of my own thoughts is like, oh, is it just so like Naminé could get to him and do what she needed to do? But they still could have just tied him up for that.
the anesthesia is a good fucking point. Okay, so I love Kingdom Hearts 2 because it really points Kingdom Hearts in a new direction that I feel like Kingdom Hearts 1 and even Chain of Memories didn't really like dive into, which is like sci-fi. Like Kingdom Hearts 2 is very sci-fi. Not even just Data Twilight Town, but also like the world that never was and like the weird futuristic rooms you find in Radiant Garden, you know? But especially this virtual simulated Twilight Town is very sci-fi. And I think future Kingdom Hearts games kind of follow through with this kind of theme. And I like it. I like it.
It's very, you always beg the Kingdom Hearts series to go back to the Y2K aesthetic.
I miss it. Kingdom Hearts is at its best when it's either emo or Y2K. It's
so true.
Gotta be one of those.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a little bit of a hater of the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer that came out a couple years ago because I'm like, where's the flavor? Where's the spice? Where's the flavor? But that's not relevant.
I agree.
What is
Mel, don't you know all games have to be realistic now?
Why can't they make Sora dress like a clown again? I miss that. Okay.
Listen, Astrobot just won Game of the Year, so there is hope in this world, I think.
That's so great. I never played that game, but anytime I ever hear about it, it's always how it's incredible. So honestly, they better work. Good for them.
Yeah, good for them.
Good for that little bitch, that little robot.
Mr. Astro.
Okay. So something that I think is so interesting, and it's another one of those things that it feels like nobody else cares about but me. And it's the fact that items and objects that were created in data left the fucking computer and are just in the real world now. Like Pixel Perfect, that one fucking movie with Phil of the Future. Have you seen that?
So true. No.
Well,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Like this hologram girl, and she like wants to be a pop star or something. I don't remember. But
good for her.
The thing is I don't think that girl could like hold anything or like touch anything. I think she would phase through stuff. But these are real objects that characters hold in their hands, which I think is just fucking crazy.
Yeah. I am glad that we had a big discussion on what data meant in Chain of Memories, because now we're kind of shifting into something like new and unexplored. Like data is obviously something that does not kind of mean the same thing we know it to be in real life.
It's data is almost like a material. It's like, oh, something's made of wood. In Kingdom Hearts, it's made of data. You know, it's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I love is Diz is like, objects from that world must be kept out of the real one. You need to delete that. And Riku's fully just like, I don't think I will. What if I not only don't delete it, but give it to Sora, who should not know about Roxas? It's so fucking funny.
What are you gonna do? Fire me?
You need me. You can't do anything without me.
Oh, I love Riku. I will say it every episode that we ever do. I love him.
Okay. The last thing I want to say about these data items is, so in a future game, at one point, people are like, without any context of what's going on, at one point, characters are like, but we can't create someone out of data. If we try to create a person out of data, they'll be stuck in the computer. They won't be able to leave it. And I remember thinking, watching that, that's literally not fucking true, because we have proof with these objects. Like, and now I'm thinking of like the hypothetical scenario of like, could a computer character go evil and like want to leave the computer and like cause mayhem in the real world? You know, I feel like it's possible.
Yeah, and I think that starts to kind of shed light on the whole like connection that the people in the data world have with their real selves. Like, yeah, it's so, like, we pointed out this connection that like real Hainer is sensing Roxas, and I wrote down my point down here. I said, imagine someone makes an avatar of you in VR chat and then you remember being friends with whoever they hung out with the most. That's crazy.
What is that? Tiny little Knuckles, the little meme. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the Ugandan Knuckles.
The Ugandan Knuckles. Imagine being like, oh, my dear friend. Oh. Like, what the fuck?
It's so, yeah, it's like, it's clear that like, again, data is not, it works differently than how we know it to be in the real world. And it's got this magical, mystical element to it that Kingdom Hearts adds to everything that it touches.
So true.
It's interesting to look at and to study, especially going forward, like you said.
Yeah. Okay, so with the photo of Roxas with the Twilight Town gang trio, I know that we've gotten questions before about, like, was Roxas, how long was Roxas in this data world? Mm-hmm. And I personally like to think that Roxas, like, the first day we see Roxas in Twilight Town is the first day he was in that world, and he wasn't in that world beforehand. So, of course, that begs the question, like, well, then what about all those photos with Roxas in it? If he didn't live all those moments, why the fuck are there photos of him? And I personally think that Diz took photos taken from the real Twilight Town, the real place, and like almost like photoshopped or digitally encoded Roxas onto the picture. Mm-hmm. That's what I think.
I think, yeah, I mean, that makes the most sense. He made a whole world. He can Photoshop a picture. He can use a blend mode in Photoshop.
And then he probably recoded all of the digital people's memories to, like, remember, quote unquote, taking the photo with Roxas. And that's something I think is important to remember, is that other than Roxas, everybody else in this world, except for maybe like Naminé and Axel or Riku or whatever, everybody else are like being manipulated in real time because they're not real. Right. And so that's kind of why, like, at some point, Pence is like, there's supposedly a girl in the window of the mansion. And Roxas literally sees Naminé, but Pence is like, it's probably just the curtains. Like, he's coded to not see her, to not recognize her. Mm-hmm. At least in my opinion, that's how I interpret it. But, okay, carrying on this thought, okay, so one of my favorite things in the world is to watch Kingdom Hearts theory videos that have like almost no views. They're so small. I love them. So one of them I watched years ago, and it was a little theory video that pointed out how usually in Twilight Town, all the characters who get paused are digital characters. They're not real. Mm-hmm. But at one point, Axel is talking to Roxas, and he's like, "What's our boss's name? You don't remember? Too bad, I have to kill you." And right before he attacks, he gets paused. Axel gets paused.
Oh, so true. I never thought about that.
And so I remember this little YouTube video being like, there's a second Axel, like 2 Axels. And I just think that's such an interesting idea. So part of me wonders, like, was it just an inconsistency? Or was the world of Twilight Town scanned so recently that... Ooh, 2 things. Oh my gosh. Okay, first of all, was scanned so recently that even Axel, with his new objective given by Xemnas or Zaldan or whoever, was like, you need to go get Roxas right now. You fucked up and you gotta get him back, right?
Yeah.
Was Twilight Town scanned so recently that they were able to scan Axel with that objective in mind? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. Because, he does get paused, and that's weird. So either it was an accident and they didn't really realize that they, as in, like, the game devs of Kingdom Hearts 2, didn't realize the implication of that. Or it was, like, a digital Axel who was trying to retrieve Roxas in that moment, ironically, while the real one was also trying to retrieve Roxas. So
yeah, that makes me think, though, that, like, Diz would just delete him. If that were the case.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, that, like...
I don't really know what to make of it.
That really does call into question what sort of power Diz has over, like, non-digital people in his digital world.
Yeah.
Like, I can pause him, but only for a few minutes or something like that.
That's interesting.
Because, yeah, like, I feel like I'm not someone who knows anything about coding, but I feel like it would make sense to me that, like, you would be able to do that. But, like, I mean, I don't need to know anything about coding in order to speculate on the fantasy series Kingdom Hearts. But still, I don't know, like... I don't know how I feel.
I almost wonder if he could manipulate... Because I would think with coding, I mean, really all I know is HTML and CSS, and then I watched Mr. Robot, and that's really all I know about coding. But I would wonder if they're able to code around Axel to prevent him from doing things. So
yeah,
maybe
that's
by
kind of
like
what I was thinking.
Coding time in the world, they were able to lock him out. I don't know. That's a good point. Really weird, really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But before I forget, something else that I kind of, I talked about how Twilight Town was probably scanned really recently, I think that might even explain the scene of Roxas opening up the egg lotus capsule and seeing Sora in there, even though he's still in the data world.
Right,
so, like,
right.
I wonder if Diz scanned Twilight Town after Sora had been transported from Castle Oblivion to Twilight Town. After he hit fucking puberty and grew super tall and outgrew his clothes. Mm-hmm. And he was still kind of like sleeping there. And then his little data version was captured in the world. That's, I think that's kind of interesting and fun and weird to think about.
Yeah, those are both strong pieces of evidence to Twilight Town being scanned recently or created recently, I think.
Okay, at one point in this presentation, we talk about the possibility, because I don't want to say it's confirmed. It's important that I don't mislead people into thinking what's fact and what's not fact. But the idea of Twilight Town not just being like stuck in the computer, but somehow it having like reach or like fingertips in the real world.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? So at one point, I also mentioned how Chip and Dale are like, we're seeing 2 Twilight Towns. What in the world is going on? So during that, it kind of depends. The length of when you can see this kind of depends on the order of like second episodes you play throughout Kingdom Hearts 2 when you're revisiting all these different worlds. Because, like, for me, when I played through it, it did not last very long, what I'm about to talk about. But I think, depending on the order you play the worlds, it can last longer. Because I don't really know, like, how the game decides to add new scenarios to worlds where you can revisit them. I don't really know what decides that. I'm sure somebody else would be like, well, it's blah, 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 but I'm not the person for that. My knowledge is only with the story and with the lore. Sorry. But my point is, for a short time on the world map with all the gummy worlds, if you look at Twilight Town, it's very fuzzy. And it's like, kind of like, I don't want to say glitching, because I think that implies like computer fuzz or like pixelations. And that's not really what you see. But you do see Twilight Town being really fuzzy and kind of jittery. And to me, that's further evidence that this data Twilight Town is like, oh God, okay. I don't want to say like another dimension because that's such heavy terminology that has so much implications. And I'm not trying to imply all of that. That's like, that almost dives like into like the paranormal. And I'm not trying to go that far. Yeah. But I still think that it might exist in terms of dimensions as in like 3D space, 3-dimensional space. But also not, because it's not like when you're walking through Twilight Town, you accidentally find yourself in a data world, you know? But at the same time, which is something that I want to get into a little bit later with an email, is how Axel is able to open corridors and enter this data world. Yeah. So it's just so weird. It's fucking weird.
Yeah, that segues into my thing where it's like, I think the idea of Diz being like, we will give them another entry point if we make a beach. Like, what do you mean? Like, there's like, you've made a whole world. What is adding a beach gonna do? Like, it's like I'm having trouble wrapping my head around like what like it could be. Like, I like, because you brought up all these points, I definitely now do think of it as like a separate physical thing in the real world. But also at the same time, I'm like, hey Diz, why did you not password protect your own digital data town? Like, how are people getting into this place that you created?
Two-author identification? What's it called?
Two-factor identification.
Two-factor identification, Diz. It's the modern world.
Have it text you a passcode when someone tries to get in, and then hit deny.
Beginner's mistake. My data world would never.
I don't even know if two-factor authentication fucking existed back when this game
Probably
was made.
not. Not only that, but his stupid password was what? Sea salt ice cream? I'm gonna beat this shit out of him. Ice cream?
Idiot. Lowercase, uppercase.
No numbers.
Numbers and special symbol. At least, Diz. Come on.
His password strength was 1 star.
Yeah, exactly. And then before we get to emails, I just want to say, let's go Naminé. Let's fucking go. Let's in that man's world. Hack into the mainframe.
Seriously. And that's another thing that I feel like is an action she took. But because it wasn't really expanded on, people don't realize that she did this. But she fucking did. Especially because that's why I wanted to point out that little world That weird little room. Do you remember what I'm talking about when I talk about that room?
I've been meaning to look it up, and I keep forgetting. I'm going to pull up the cutscenes right now. Man, yeah, this room's fucking weird.
Yeah.
She's just sitting on a block.
It's literally so weird. Which, like, because it's so minimalist, that's another thing that makes me wonder if she coded it herself, is because it's not complicated. It's a very simple, like, there's each little weird block in this room probably has, like, what, 5 polygons, you know? And so it's like baby's first Blender model. Like, I wonder if she made this world herself.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. Especially with how some of the blocks look like the cards from Chain of Memories.
Yeah.
So to me, this really feels like a world she made herself with her own experience and kind of knowledge of the world.
Yeah. No, that seems right to me. Very much like this is the only thing I know in my life. So
totally.
This is how I have to, this is what rooms look like. This is what furniture looks like.
What do you mean the inside of houses are all super white? Yellow. What is that? What is yellow? God. Oh, Naminé.
Oh, Naminé. We love her.
We love her.
Queen. All right. Should we move on to emails? We got a lot of emails this time. Got a lot of questions.
Okay. Yes.
So our first kind of group of questions we got was about how this data Twilight Town was made. So we got questions from Peach and from Johan asking, how was it made? Was there some sort of like scanner that Diz used to sneak around and scan the whole thing? Was Evan involved in this kind of creation with his like kind of digital technological abilities and know-how? How did he do it, Mel? Tell us how he did it.
I don't know. I almost wonder if he used... Okay, do you remember at the end of The World That Never Was, Ansem the Wise, like, whipped out that weird fucking machine? And he... I think he, like, tried to encode Kingdom Hearts with it.
Yeah.
I don't really know what... Girl, what did you think was gonna happen? I don't know what he was trying to accomplish during that. But I almost wonder if he whipped that thing out in the middle of, like, the fucking sand lot in Twilight Town or something.
Yeah.
And somehow scanned the world. And maybe did it like how Peach asks. Maybe doing it, like, area by area. And maybe that's why the beach wasn't made, you know? He didn't go to the beach. He didn't scan it.
Right.
But it's really weird. There are some things in Kingdom Hearts where it's talked about, and then you kind of sit there, controller in hand, and you realize, how come we don't see this on fucking screen? How come we do not see it on screen?
Mm-hmm.
It's weird, and this is just one of those things. And I don't know if it's because it's, like, so awkward that maybe the devs, like, had to dance around it.
Mm-hmm. It also, like, it very much plays into the whole mystery at the beginning of this game. Like, you are dropped in just like Roxas is. Especially if you didn't play Chain of Memories, which I think a lot of people do that. A lot of people go straight from Kingdom Hearts 1 to Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah.
So that, like, I'm sure that plays a lot into it of like figuring out what the fuck's going on, just like Roxas.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's weird. I can't get over how weird that little machine is. I've always thought to myself, that little machine, because, like, you know, we mentioned earlier how Kingdom Hearts 2 is a bit more sci-fi. But that little weird fucking machine is supposed to be like a data encoder, and it is the least sci-fi, science fiction looking device I've ever seen.
Then it blows up and turns Riku into a new outfit.
God. I don't even know what to do with it. It has like a little galaxy inside. I'm like, what is the deal with that? So,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to think of it. But yeah, I wish I could say more specifically how Data Twilight Town was created. But
they just don't fucking talk about it.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Let me even fucking see if he mentions it in an Ansem report. I don't think he does.
I don't think so either.
Let me just look, just in case. Just in case. First, I shall convert all of Twilight Town into data and construct a world duplicate. And that's all he fucking says. Okay, thanks for the specifics.
Aren't you supposed to be a fucking scientist, my man?
I mean, maybe Peach is onto something here, because Peach says, I've always imagined Diz was able to create the data Twilight Town because of his past experience with space paranoids as Reading Garden's computer system, which I think is a very interesting point. Mm-hmm. And then Peach also says, I'd like to think Data Town was as glitchy as it is because Evan was probably the data guy out of the apprentices. And I think that is so funny. The idea of Diz being like, God, my life would be so much easier if Exen was here. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, I almost wonder if Riku, as sassy as he is, was like, is it that hard to make a beach,
Yeah. And he doesn't fucking know anything about computers.
I know. I would love that if Diz was like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how it's done.
Evan, code a beach for me. Or you're getting fired.
Evan Coda Beach sounds like a name. Sounds like an actor name. Okay.
So next question from Johan, which I think is a very interesting question because of what we were talking about earlier with people having like ramifications of having a digital version of themselves existing somewhere else. So Johan asks, like, what eventually becomes of virtual Twilight Town? Are the inhabitants still there? Do they remember Roxas? Did Roxas just disappear to them?
Yeah, it's weird. It's especially because Johan points out a good point of like everybody wanting to like come together and like investigating like, hey, things have been weirder than normal. Like, let's all go figure out why. And then Johan's point is like, and then Roxas disappears, and then people are like, well, fuck, like, what do we do now? I almost wonder. So when we revisit Twilight Town, the digital version of Twilight Town, again, as Sora, at the end of the game, we can't like leave the mansion, right? We can only go into like 2 rooms and then that's kind of it, right? Yeah. Yeah, because I remember Jimmy being like, I can't explore. Like, okay. But so we don't know if people are still kind of walking around in that digital version. But I almost feel, to me, it would make sense if after Roxas disappeared into Sora, if Diz was like, okay, pause this. Like, let's just hit pause. I don't give a fuck about any of these little digital characters. They're literally like fucking Neopets to me. Like, I might as well just press pause and like, I don't have to worry about them anymore.
Yeah.
But I also think the thing about the digital Twilight Town characters is that they didn't give a fuck. They literally, like, the weirdest shit could happen, and they just don't fucking care.
They were unable to physically say a word, and they're like, well, just another day in Twilight Town. Just another day in Ohio.
Yeah, so even if Diz didn't pause them, I just think that they just, like, maybe they would be confused of why Roxas is suddenly missing. I don't know. But because Roxas was never supposed to be there in the first place, part of me even wonders if, like, they are okay with Roxas not being there because they're like returning to their original programming.
Yeah, like factory reset type shit.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It is weird to think about.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, man, like, I'll cut me saying this out, but like, the fact that we never really talk about this sort of thing again, I just want to like talk about, I don't know, they almost feel like nobodies to me, because they're like, not real versions of someone, you know, like, I don't know.
I think we can keep it in, especially because it almost feels like, you know, Yensid and Sayax are like, nobodies don't feel anything. And then Roxas is literally like, fuck you! Fuck you! It almost feels like the data versions of the Twilight Town characters are what nobodies should be. Are how people describe nobodies. So that's a really good point, Hannah.
Yeah, just the fact that they have like real world consequences to their actions is what's tripping me up a lot.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Not tripping me up, but like just making my wheels turn in my head a lot. Like there's something more to it than just them being data. But
oh, I see what you mean. I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, like that's why I'm thinking about them.
That's such a good point because like, okay, so for example, Nick sends the email. Nick sent an email bringing up the scene with Hayner and being like, you sure we haven't met before? And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because Nick also brings this up, but I can't talk about it because it's from a future game. But in a future game, we have this digital character remembering something that they literally should not be remembering because it did not happen to them.
Yeah.
And so that is why, like, you know, we don't know what, like, Roxas did throughout his whole year of being alive. So I don't know. Like, especially, you know, there's going back to, like, Chain of Memories, what we talked about in Chain of Memories, how Roxas saw Hayner, Pence, and Olette eating ice cream. You know, so Roxas was clearly around in Twilight Town. So we don't know if they, like, ever bumped into each other or what. They clearly don't fucking remember him because they're like, Roxas, who's that? Like, they don't fucking know him. Mm-hmm. But it's still just... My point is, like, maybe there's another reason why Hayner was like, you sure we haven't met before, Sora? But I feel like his connection, his data, his digital version's connection to Roxas has got to be a huge candidate for why this scene even fucking happens.
Yeah, and, like, that's obviously what they're implying with like, the way that scene is composed, I feel.
Yeah. It's just, it, like, literally makes me so insane. I don't know what it is. There's something about... You are so right when you compare digital characters to nobodies. You're so right, because we're told that both these versions of people don't matter, that they don't feel, that they're nothing. And I feel like I'm having the same fucking epiphany that Ansem the Wise had, where he's like, no, there's more to this. It can't be encapsulated by data. Everything I thought I knew I was wrong about. There's more going on, and you should love everybody and treat everybody with compassion.
Of course. Of course. Poor people.
It's just fucking weird, dude.
Yeah. I will be thinking about this for a long time, is what I'm taking away from this.
Yeah. And this, I'll carry it on to the next one, because
go for it.
This also reminds me of something that Peachy also asked, was like, how was Axel able to enter this Twilight Town without Dizuriku noticing? And Peach has had an interesting thought where maybe there was like a terminal in the world that never was that people were able to use to hack into Diz's system. But I don't know if that's the case, because there is that portal that leads to the world that never was. And, like, I guess it's not confirmed, but it's like, I guess I just assumed that that portal was made by Axel. Because he was always trying to enter Twilight Town. As soon as Sora goes in there, Axel is in there as well, you know? Mm. Like, it just makes sense to me that those two are connected. But my point is, so I don't know if they had to hack Axel in. I think he was able to enter this world with a normal portal. And it brings back to the thing about the digital characters and how maybe they're like, I don't know if I'll go so far as to say they're real, but they have to be real-ish. And then the world has to be real-ish by extension, which is how Axel is able to enter it. And it's just like this big web of confusion.
Yeah. And that, like, brings into question, like, where is it in relation to, like, the realm of darkness? Because they're using corridors of darkness to fucking get there.
Yeah. This shit doesn't make no fucking sense.
This doesn't make any fucking sense. It's so odd.
It's so odd. But also, the reason why I wanted to talk about this world as a topic of a whole episode is because there are things even going on, like, in recent Kingdom Hearts that you can use Twilight Town to understand it. And so that's why I wanted to emphasize, like, we don't know if the virtual Twilight Town is somehow outside of the computer. We don't know that. But I think thinking about it like that might help you understand future scenarios that are, like, games in the future. Like, I love planting things to be sown in, like, 10 years. I love it.
We're laying foundations. Never forget this. We're laying foundations, always.
Always. It's just so interesting. I love this world. I love looking at it and talking about it and thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too.
Okay, well, great.
Amazing. So that's all we got. Mel, what's our next episode on?
Our next episode, we are returning to the overall picture of Kingdom Hearts, and we're gonna go back and talk about the world building again and how Kingdom Hearts 2 expands on it from Kingdom Hearts 1.
Hell yeah.
So, like, for example, we're gonna talk about what the fuck is Sora doing when a little item floats up and he shoots it with his Keyblade? What is going on there? Why does that let him go to new worlds? You know, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
That's something I want to talk about. I want to talk about, you know, again, these corridors of darkness and how they work. And then I also wanted to talk about Kingdom Hearts itself. And, like, it's a moon. And how does it work? And, you know, it's made of hearts and all these kind of things. And this is something we kind of talked about before. But this will allow us to talk about it in other ways. Oh, I also wanted to talk about how Sora opens, like, that door of light in the realm of darkness. I'm like, what the fuck was up with that? So, anyway, those are all these little different things that can be encapsulated with the world building of Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, if you have any questions about those things, you can email sheddingstarlight@gmail.com or message us on Patreon or put questions in the YouTube comments. Any of those things work. Yeah. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like the video, subscribe, share it with a friend, give us those 5 little stars on your favorite podcast platform. We just recently hit 75 5-star reviews on Spotify, which is amazing.
Oh my god! You know that?
Yeah. So thank you to everyone who's already done that.
Thank you.
And yeah, we got anything else, Mel?
I don't think so. Do you think if water spilled in digital Twilight Town, it would have ruined it? It would have do you think Diz was eating sea salt ice cream over his computer and it melted on the keyboard and it fucked it up?
I didn't know what you meant at first. I thought you just meant if Roxas spilled a cup of water in his bedroom or something. Do you think it would melt? What are you talking about? No,
water ruining digital world. I don't know. That's all I got. That's all I got. I don't have anything else to say.
I mean, Roxas did beat up the one computer that in Data Twilight Town. So who fucking knows?
Remember
what
when that was
did.
a meme? Can that be a meme again? I missed that. Anyway,
I need an edit. This probably exists somewhere of Roxas beating up that computer to some fucking dance song or something with a fast beat. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all we got for this week. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the Starlight.